With 7.3 million reservists in 5 years, Xi Jinping threatens the world. The Chinese regime infiltrates worldwide using illegal police stations, the Argentinian case. In China, children and their families are forced to declare non-practice of religion. China's digital war against Taiwan. Since the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, implemented the Reserve Army law in March this year, the outside world has become warier of Beijing's intentions as it strengthens the military and prepares for war. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken recently stated that China's People's Liberation Army, PLA, will likely invade Taiwan by 2027. Taiwanese experts who study the PLA indicated that by 2027, the size of the PLA's reserve force would reach 7.3 million. The CCP's military ambitions are not only aimed at the Taiwan Strait, but also pose a threat to the world. Security tensions over the Taiwan Strait have recently become the international focus. U.S. President Joe Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau issued a joint statement after their bilateral talks in Canada on March 25th, reiterating the importance of maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. On March 23rd, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated at a U.S. congressional hearing that he agreed with the assessment of the CIA, saying China's PLA could invade Taiwan by force by 2027. The time of 2027 was initially forecast by the former commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Philip Davidson, when he assumed the position of commander of the Indo-Pacific Command in March 2021. On the same day, March 23rd, the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said at a congressional hearing that the CCP is the most severe geostrategic adversary of the U.S. today. So a U.S.-China war is inevitable, but it won't happen soon. At the same time, the CCP has also continuously expanded its reserves to increase defense mobilization. From March 1st of this year, Beijing began implementing the new Reserve Army law. This law, passed at the National People's Congress on December 30th, 2022, stipulates that reservists are members of the National Armed Forces and an important additional source for the active-duty Army troops during wartime to defend the country. Analysts said the promulgation of the Reserve Army law not only means the PLA's reserve forces will move towards an independent development path, no longer associated with other militia organizations' development. It also means the CCP will put more soldiers on the payroll from the reserve conscription system. These servicemen can be transferred directly to the active-duty army according to the need in normal times and become a resupply depot for the PLA's expansion. In an interview with VOA, Yang Tianyuan, former assistant professor at the Institute of China Military Affairs Studies at Taiwan National Defense University, said the purpose of the PLA's reserve force is to hide soldiers from the people and conceal the CCP's military expansion ambitions. It is tantamount to a disguised military expansion. This adjustment is to fulfill Xi Jinping's war preparation requirements, Yang said. Some Taiwanese media, including New Talk, consider the CCP's Army Reserves Law the first step in preparing for the invasion of Taiwan by force. In this regard, Yang said the current goal of the CCP's military construction is to pursue its dream of becoming a regional and world power. Therefore, the CCP promotes military modernization and preparations for wars, mainly against Western powers and the US, not against Taiwan, but can also use the Taiwan Strait as a springboard when necessary. The CCP's reserve force consists of PLA's reserve units, members registered for reserve service, and professional and technical military personnel. Regarding the number of reservists, the CCP has never made the number public. Until September 2009, the CCP website cited Xinhua News reporting that the PLA had 510,000 reservists, over 5.3 million enlisted people, and 1.2 million professional servicemen. That is to say, the PLA has a reserve force of 7.01 million in 2009, and no relevant official public data has been available since. After July 1, 2020, the CCP announced its reserve force would fully integrate into the Army's leadership and command system. As a result, the Army and local CCP authorities' former dual leadership would be incorporated into the centralized and unified leadership of the Party Central Committee and the Central Military Commission. Yang Tianyuan said the CCP faces a serious world situation and needs people who can fight immediately. Therefore, they are estimated to add more military personnel to the reserve force. In addition, to win the information war, the number of professional and technical personnel will increase slightly to 1.5 million. Therefore, by 2027, the PLA's reserve force is estimated to be over 7.3 million people. Yang also assessed that the PLA's future reserve force organization would gradually be adjusted from reserve divisions, reserve brigades, and reserve regiments to combined brigade and combined battalion. Their equipment, like active duty soldiers, will also be gradually charged to integrate and develop with active duty soldiers. In addition, the CCP can also reduce the growth rate of the Army Reserve and increase the size of other services to meet future operational needs. In an interview with VOA, Su Jinyun, director of the Taiwan Center for Security Studies, said the PLA's 7.3 million reserve force is a conservative estimate. Taking China's relatively large population base as an example, it is reasonable to estimate the number of the reserve forces and militia is over 14 million. The Beijing Public Cybersecurity website also reported the number of over 10 million reservists on September 30th, 2022. Su said the CCP's reserve army law is undoubtedly intended to prepare for war. Still, it has no direct connection to the Taiwan Strait. Because the CCP cannot afford to spend tens of millions of manpower for cross-strait operations, he said the amphibious force would create a critical battle if a war broke out in the Taiwan Strait. But the Taiwan Strait, East China Sea, and EC defense are based on air defense. Taiwan will also rely on anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles to deter the CCP. Therefore, the CCP's reserve forces will most likely be used as an additional logistical supply during wartime or form a second-line army for defense after the main frontline force has departed. Some soldiers will also go to the front to support combat missions. The North Korean peninsula bordering China or the China-India border where war could break out at any moment might be the more direct battlefield for the PLA reserve force, said Su Jinyun. The CCP is the main threat to Taiwan, but Taiwan should not think the CCP is targeting only Taiwan. However, a lack of confidence would harm Taiwan's defensibility, so they should look at a threat objectively. In January this year, the People's Liberation Army Daily published an article on the National Defense Reserve and Mobilization Force. Now and in the future, China is in an important period of growth, from being large to being strong and overcoming barriers. Unforeseen risks and challenges will continue to appear. The construction of reserve, mobilization, and reserve force for national defense will certainly play a greater role in the military competition in the future.
Argentina is one of the countries where the Chinese regime has managed to penetrate countless political, economic, and social aspects. The network of secret police stations is also installed there to ensure that the wishes and demands of the Chinese Communist Party are fulfilled. According to a rigorous investigation published in the documentary Argentina, Choosing Between the Righteousness and the Perverse to Reach Glory, a Chinese police station in Argentina has been acting in total complicity with local officials and politicians influenced by the regime. According to reports, one of the main functions of this Chinese station is to prevent the spread in the country of the Falun Dafa spiritual discipline, which has been persecuted in China for more than 20 years. On several occasions, the secret police station in Argentina, using in some cases the local security forces, has beaten and threatened several practitioners of the discipline just for trying to spread information about the atrocities suffered by members of Falun Dafa in mainland China. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's war against religion, is intensifying. In a race to impose atheism and eradicate belief in the divine, the CCP focuses its efforts on the youngest, using them as a means of extortion to indoctrinate their families. According to the media outlet Bitter Winter, in the Chinese city of Wenzhou, Zhejiang, parents of kindergarten students were forced to sign an oath as a condition for their children to remain in the school. In the oath, parents must declare that they have no religious beliefs, do not participate in religious activities, and do not propagate or spread religion anywhere. They must also pledge to raise civilized families outside of religion, avoid what the CCP calls feudal superstition, and teach children faith in science, socialism, and the Chinese Communist Party. An anonymous kindergarten teacher in Wenzhou reported to the Christian NGO China Aid. In the past, the higher education department forced kindergartens not to be superstitious and not to participate in cult organizations, but did not order families of kindergarteners not to believe in religion or participate in any religious activities. Wenzhou, called the Jerusalem of China, is a region where Christianity was firmly implanted. The 2,000 churches and the crosses mounted on the roofs of houses formed a representative landscape of this city, which was the victim of the most severe anti-Christian repression by the CCP. Its population still remembers the campaign to demolish crosses and the destruction of some 50 Christian churches under China's leader Xi Jinping. CCP authorities installed security cameras in all churches in Zhejiang province to monitor who attends Mass and what is preached from the pulpit. All this is under the pretext of anti-terrorism and security measures, even though China has never experienced a terrorist threat from Christian communities. Open Doors, a Christian persecution watchdog group, reported in 2020 how the CCP was beginning to target children to wipe out future generations of Christian believers. In 2018, the CCP issued regulations banning church youth camps. As a result, youth cannot share their faith with friends at school, and anyone under 18 is forbidden from entering churches. Anyone caught violating these restrictions risked being fined or losing their school graduation. Some parents, fearing reprisals, no longer encourage their children to pursue religious activities. According to a Chinese church leader who remains anonymous, school teachers warn children that if they follow Jesus, they will not be allowed to graduate, creating anguish for students to live out their beliefs, at the risk of losing everything they have worked for. Throughout the 5,000-year history of Chinese civilization, belief in the divine has been a fundamental part of the lives of its people. Yet the Chinese Communist Party is still determined to erase a legacy that is part of the identity of its people.
Taiwan has been a prime target of disinformation campaigns run by the Chinese Communist Party since 2000. Taiwan's freedoms of speech, media, and association are factors that China seeks to fully exploit to spread disinformation to undermine trust in the island's democracy and governance. In addition, the CCP tries to instill in the minds of the Taiwanese people that the only way to avoid war is to support plans for peaceful reunification with mainland China. Targeting Taiwan's trade news and social media scene. Disinformation remains an effective method the CCP often uses to influence and interfere in Taiwan's politics. Over the past few years, many Communist Party-backed campaigns have fabricated false stories about Taiwan. These stories are typically created by content farms, websites that produce large amounts of low-quality content but are designed to rank high in search engine results, and then published in Taiwanese media and amplified by state-sponsored accounts. Before the 2020 presidential election, the CCP spread information that Tsai Ing-wen had forged a doctoral thesis. The London School of Economics later denied this information. After the election, CCP disinformation campaigns spread the news that the U.S. CIA manipulated Tsai's victory. Beijing's strategy is also aimed at sowing discord among the public. For example, in 2018, the mainland media ramped up criticism that Taiwanese diplomats could not evacuate their citizens from Osaka during a typhoon. They even spread false information that Taiwanese citizens had to declare they were Chinese to be evacuated. During the COVID pandemic, Chinese state-sponsored actors spread misinformation about Taiwan's Medigen vaccine. They also tried to discredit Taiwanese officials by fabricating stories of non-compliance with social distancing rules. Beijing has attempted to bring Taiwan closer to the mainland through political cooperation and economic incentives, but these efforts seem to have failed, especially after the CCP's One Country, Two Systems framework was severely discredited after the passage of Hong Kong's national security law. Cognitive war. Cognitive war is a form of psychological warfare that uses misinformation to create confusion in people's minds, deployed by the CCP alongside near-daily cyber attacks in Taiwan. This frequently used tactic aims to dampen Taiwan's military and civilian response, undermining public confidence in Taipei's ability to protect its citizens. In addition, the CCP disguises fake and misleading news as Taiwanese-produced content to reduce people's ability to distinguish fact from fiction and undermine public belief. In response to these moves by Beijing, Taiwan's Ministry of Digital Affairs has implemented a series of measures to combat misinformation. One of the measures is the G0V, or Gov0 Citizen Hacking Program, and a bilingual Google Assistant chatbot for Taiwan's Centers for Disease Control. Civil society organizations such as Taiwan Fact Check review issues related to the public interest. Kofax operates the community resource platform for Line, and Doublethink Lab maintains a toolkit to combat conspiracy theories and propaganda activities. The volunteer-led organization Fake News Cleaner hosts media literacy workshops to help distinguish misinformation. One of the most effective approaches is still humor over rumor, in which fake news is reposted on social media with humorous memes such as the dog Shiba Inu explaining the truth. Most of these initiatives are based on Taiwan's belief that technology will strengthen democracy by ensuring open data tools, transparency, and accountability tools. As such, China's efforts to coerce Taiwan economically and militarily to force Taiwan to accept reunification will continue to be accompanied by silent information wars aimed at polarizing Taiwanese society. Understanding how Taipei balances surveillance and regulation, active citizen participation, and diverse media will also be necessary for other countries seeking to fend off Beijing's interference in democratic processes outside of Taiwan.